On today's episode, we're going to talk about paying off your debt. How do you come out of this cycle of getting into debt to survive? And now you find that you have so much anxiety because different people are demanding you and your income is not able to cover it. How do you get out of this? Welcome to the Personal Finance and Coffee Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriela. On this podcast, we talk all things money and finances. Learning how to manage our money and make it grow is a skill that can be learned, that we can get better at. So on this podcast, let us have the conversations. Let us dig deep into how does this really work. We're going to have guests and learn from each other. Welcome to today's episode. And today we're going to talk about debt. The thing about debt is that when we think about it, we usually think about the people abroad and how they talk about credit card debt, and you're like, for us here in Uganda, it's not that relatable. We are getting into this process. Everywhere you turn, someone wants to lend you money. People are telling you school fees loan. The people at the SACCO are offering you loan products. MTN is giving you loans. Money lenders, the list goes on and on. And when you're pressed for life, in the sense that maybe you need a hospital bill to be cleared, you genuinely need the money and you don't have it at that time, you need to take on the loan. So there are different reasons why we get into debt. In this episode today, I'm going to take you through 6 steps to take to start this journey. And these are not 6 steps that you will do tomorrow and you're done. No, it's a process. You start it and you keep going. So that's what we're getting into today. How do you clear the loans and create a structure, create a system so that you don't get back into the cycle again? First thing I'd like to talk about is the mindset around debt. The first step to getting out of debt is to be honest with yourself. Now, being honest is the first step because sometimes when you're overwhelmed, you're like covering it. You're like, no, I don't want to look at it. I don't think about it. It's overwhelming, gives you anxiety, and it feels like such a huge thing. You don't want to look at the numbers. Probably you got into debt to start a business and then the business didn't work, and now you still have to pay the debt. Probably you got into debt for medical reasons, and now the money lender is calling you, or a friend or a relative that you borrowed money from you're trying not to pick their calls, or now your salary is so little because the bank gave you a loan and it's deducted before even the money hits your account. Be honest with yourself. This is not a very easy step. One of the reasons why we don't want to get into it is because we are scared to look at it. We're scared to look at the numbers because they feel so huge. Now, once you get honest with yourself, you're like, okay, I am in debt and this is how I got into debt. Maybe it was even a lifestyle debt. Sometimes you can get into debt to keep up with friends. Someone has a trip and all your friends are going, and so you borrow money from here. You're like, oh, I'll pay it back when salary comes. And then you have a friend's birthday and they're all going to this maison. Wow, they're going to a nice place. And you're like, let me borrow from here. And before you know it, you have loans here, loans there, and they've added up. So just be honest with yourself. And in this process of being honest with yourself, ask yourself, how did I get into debt? What were the reasons? It's important to understand the reasons why you got into debt, because you can't prevent it from happening again if you are not honest with yourself. Fine, you must be thinking, but Gabi, I know why, it's obvious. Yeah, it's okay, but just take a moment and understand that I am in debt and this is how I got here. Now, once you know that, the next process in being honest with yourself is to find out, why do you want to get out of debt? Because people live in debt forever. People live in, they borrow here to pay back there, they borrow here to pay back there, and they live their lives. And everyone looks at them and thinks they're loaded. So the question is, be honest with yourself and ask yourself, why do you want to get out of debt? Are you tired of having this anxiety of people are calling, you don't want to pick the calls? Are you feeling bad that you can't work towards maybe a goal that you have because you're constantly trying to pay back debt? Are you feeling bad that you're not able to provide for your family as you want to because all the money you're making is clearing the debts from the past? The reason why you want to get out of debt will be personal to you. Now, once you're honest with yourself, once you know why you want to start this journey, next you need to stop taking loans. This is also part of being honest. The second step is to get a piece of paper and write every person who demands you. You write the source of the loan, you write the amount that they're demanding you, you write the interest rate if they're charging you interest, and then you write the agreed upon monthly payments if you have a plan, if you made a monthly payment plan with them. So you're going to have, let me give an example, you're going to have maybe the circle that you're borrowing money from. Maybe that circle is demanding you 1 million and they're charging you an interest of 2% per month, and then you made a payment plan and you're supposed to pay them a certain amount of money. Maybe you're supposed to pay them 200k. That's the first loan. Then you go to the second loan. Now this could be a personal loan. Maybe you borrowed money from your auntie. This is how much it is. Maybe it has no interest. Then maybe you borrowed money from a money lender and this is the interest. Maybe you got a salary loan. This is the interest. Just write them all down. As you write down the debts in this step, it's going to be scary. It's going to be overwhelming. And you feel like, how am I going to get over this? How am I actually going to pay all these loans back? Now, once you've written them down, you will need to look for people that you can talk to request for an extension of time if it is possible. This is not easy because sometimes we don't want to talk to people who feel like, my ego. I made a commitment, I made debts, When you look at these numbers and you feel like, but I cannot pay all these loans back with the income I have right now. Look at them and ask yourself, who can be lenient? Not that I will not pay them back, but I just need a bit of time. And it's interesting because people are actually more understanding than you may think. Okay, there's some money lenders who are straight up sharks, I don't know. But people will be more understanding than you expect. The third step is to make the order in which you're going to pay them. There are two ways to pay back debt. There is the debt avalanche method, and then there is the snowball method. The avalanche method is where you pick the debt that has the highest interest, and it's the one that you work on to pay back. When you pay the highest interest debt first, it will save you on the interest because you'll be able to clear it and get it over with. The snowball method, you pick the loan that has the lowest amount that you need to pay back, and then you pay the lowest amount, you go to the next until you get to the person who you owe the most money. When you use this method, most people recommend this method because it feels nice. You're like, oh, I've paid off my first debt. Let me keep going. I can do this. You get motivated each time you pay off a person. The third step is to decide the method of payment and the order in which you're going to pay them. The fourth step that you're going to take is to make a budget. Yeah, that word. I know sometimes some people just hear the word budget and they're like, oh, that's not for me. The importance of budgeting is going to always come up when it comes to finances. A budget is not a list of all your bills. When you write, these are all my expenses, that is not a budget. What a budget really is look at how much money you actually have. Either how much you receive every month or how much you have at the moment. It's a spending plan. You're like, okay, this is how much money I have, and this is where it's going to go. And then you do your best to stick to that spending plan. When you write down all your bills, and then you write down all your income, and you literally are in red, you need to spend more than you earn. And then you look at the situation that you're in, with even sustaining your life is not easy with the income that you have, but you still have to pay back these debts, and it all has to come from your income. Now, once you've made that plan, perhaps it has worked for you. You're like, okay, I can adjust here, and then you fit the loan payments in that plan. You pick the monthly amount that the bank takes, you put it in that budget. You pick the monthly amount for the circle, you put it in that budget. Based on the plan you've made, the order in which you're going to pay back your loans, based on that plan, fit it within your budget as well as your living expenses, your rent, your power, the daily life expenses. Now this brings us to the fifth step. On this journey, you will need to make some life changes. This is painful. You will need to make some life changes to reduce your expenses, and you will need to make some life changes to increase your income. You cannot do the same things and expect different results. That's the honest truth. You need to make some life changes. Look at how you're spending your money currently. Do you need to change the house you're living in? Do you need to reduce the times that you go out with friends? Just look at your expenses and make decisions on the life changes you will need to take. Because when you think about it, it's your past lifestyle that may or may not have got you into a place of debt. So for you to get out, you cannot expect to do the same things. And usually, as human beings, we don't like change. We don't like being uncomfortable. You will start this journey, and along the way, people will tell you, YOLO, you only live once. Why are you stressing? people live in debt all the time because making life changes is not easy. Now, the life changes that come around increasing your income will mean that you'll need to work some more or change how you're working. Either you get a side hustle. You may also need to start looking for other jobs that will pay you more. That's also a possibility. Also, as you're making these life changes, keep in mind step 1, why are you choosing to get out of debt? The final and 6th step in this process is that it's very important to give yourself grace. Because I'm telling you today, you're going to be like, now this is the day I am done. I'm clearing all my debts. And something will happen and you have to get back into debt. And then you will feel so bad. You will feel so down. You're like, I can't do this. This is life, honestly. On this journey, you will fall down, and it's important to feel the emotions and then get back up and try again. Just keep trying until you get there, because people have done this before. I'm telling you, I'm not perfect. As I make these episodes, let's be clear, I'm not perfect. I'm not like a millionaire who has arrived, who has done what. No, I'm simply passionate about this. The little life experience that I've had, very little, is simply what I'm trying to share with you, that when you go through these steps, perhaps you pick a few things from here. But this final step is very important and is what will keep you going. When you mess up, when something happens and that is not in your control, you will start this journey and then your child will get sick. And children's bills are not small. You will have to borrow money so that your child is better. It's okay. It is necessary. But let it not make you feel like this is an impossible journey. Just say, okay, this has happened. Pick yourself up and try again. Now, as you go through this process, people usually recommend that even though you're paying back debt, it's important to have some money on the side that will bail you out in situations like this so that you don't keep going back into debt. That's another thing you can look at. You can say, maybe on my account, I'm going to have this amount of money. I don't intend to touch it, and I will use it in the event that something urgent comes up so that I don't have to borrow money again. Some people, it doesn't make sense to them. You're like, but Gabi, why would I have money on my account when I'm trying to pay off debt? For some people, this doesn't make sense. Just decide what works for you. What I'm doing here is sharing the different options that you can choose. Those are the 6 steps that I have for you to get out of debt. Now you've started. You're like, let's do this. The other question that usually comes up is, so how do you stay motivated? Because you may have a lot of debt and this is not a small journey for you. How do you keep motivated to keep pushing, especially when your lifestyle has changed, and then you will have moments of YOLO. You only live once. What's the whole point? You have moments where you feel like, I'm so exhausted, I'm working so hard, things are not shifting, why should I keep doing this? I just have a few points that maybe can give you some ways to support yourself and keep yourself motivated. The first one I think is obvious. Remember why you're doing this. The second way that you can keep motivated is to find people that are like-minded. You may have friends who are living their life, and for them, they don't want to know. They are just like, everyone has debt. They borrow from point A to pay back point B. So having circles like that are not in the same mindset, and you spend a lot of time with them, it really does, it affects your energy and your zeal to pay back debt. So assess the people that you're around and see if they are like-minded in this way. The third way that you can keep yourself motivated is to stop comparing yourself with other people. We are in this era of social media. It shows everybody's highlight reel. When you're looking at people's statuses, when you're looking at their social media, but you don't know their full story, you don't know their full picture. So for you to keep motivated, you will need to stop comparing yourself to others and feeling like you need to spend money. The fourth way that you can keep motivated on this journey of paying off debt is to acknowledge your wins. Acknowledge the first debt you pay if you're like, yep, I did it, and celebrate it. Each month that goes by and you've been able to stick to your budget, celebrate that win. It's by celebrating the wins that you're able to acknowledge to yourself that I'm doing something. It may be slow, but it's working. Now, once you have started the journey, you're now motivated, you're like, I'm going to do this. So the other question is, how do you stop this cycle of debt? How do you stop paying off the debts and then you get back into it again? And you're like, but Gabi, I pay the loans back and then I get back into it again. How do you break this cycle? You need a system that works for you. Double underline for you. When you go on the internet, there is so much information about budgeting, personal finance. This channel is one of them. My point of view when I'm consuming this content is that everyone is sharing their journey. I'm sharing my journey and my perspective. What you as my dear listener, you have to do is Pick one thing that may work for you, give it a try. If it works, stick to it. You'll pick one thing from here, pick another from another channel, another from another channel. When you combine them, you find a system that works for you. So this brings me back to, what is this system? Yep, you guessed it, budgeting. You need to budget in a way that works for you, because it is through budgeting that you can live within your means. And once you're living within your means, then you don't have the need to borrow. But once you don't have a budget, once you don't have a system so that each time that I get paid, this is what I do, this is where my money goes. Once you don't have that system, you will find yourself getting back into debt, because there will be expenses that you did not anticipate. You'll blink and you're like, school fees is coming back. But if you're not budgeting, then you cannot plan for the school fees and say, okay, fine, I pay school fees in this month. You can say maybe term 2 is starting in June. And you're like, I'm going to pay school fees in June. So now I can start setting aside a certain amount of money each month, because you know that when June comes, your salary won't increase because you're paying fees. No, it's going to be the same. So when you're budgeting, you can anticipate such expenses and you're like, okay, I'm going to try and put aside a little money so that I'm not in shock when the term begins. Those are some of my tips that I can share with you. I hope you've picked a few things that you're going to try. There are probably some that I've not talked about. Share with me in the comments below. What have you done? How have you been able to get out of debt? Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you like the content, you can subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss upcoming episodes. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to this episode. I really do hope that it added value to you. Share it with a friend, share it with a loved one. If you're listening to this on YouTube, leave your comment. What were your thoughts? If you have a different point of view, please share. Let us learn. I'm not there yet and I'm learning as well. You can subscribe, because we're going to have new content coming to you every week. Bye guys.